Number 7. Jack Bonavita. Los Angeles, California, 1917. He had already lost one arm to a lion. He knew better than anyone what these animals could do. That didn't save him. Jack Bonavita was one of Hollywood's most celebrated animal trainers in the silent film era, a tough, one-armed showman who had survived things that would have ended most men's careers before they started. He worked with lions, bears, and big cats for studios across Los Angeles, and his reputation was built on the belief that sheer nerve could control any animal. In 1917, he was assigned to work with a polar bear named Piccolo at a film studio menagerie. Piccolo had a known history of unpredictability, but Bonavita entered the cage anyway. When the bear refused a command, Bonavita pushed back, likely with a whip or a stick, the only tool available to his one remaining hand. The bear didn't retreat. It exploded. With a single swipe, Piccolo drove Bonavita into the cage bars. Then it grabbed his head in its jaws. Eyewitnesses on set watched the bear tear open his jaw and split his face to the bone. His jaw was shattered. The tissue on the left side of his face was stripped clean. He was pulled from the cage and rushed into emergency surgery, but the blood loss and shock were too severe. He died on the operating table. The bear was shot in its cage the same day, and its carcass was put on public display outside the studio. Number 6. Jackie Boxberger. Samburu East National Park, Kenya, August 2001. He stepped out of the Jeep for a photograph. The elephant made sure he never stepped back in. Jackie Boxberger was a decorated French Olympic long-distance runner, a man who had built his entire life around the limits of the human body. How far it could go, how much punishment it could absorb, how fast it could recover. In August 2001, he was on vacation in Kenya with his family, touring Samburu East National Park. His celebrity status earned him a little extra latitude from the guides, a few extra meters closer to the animals than the average tourist. Their vehicle stopped roughly 65 feet from a female elephant. Boxberger climbed out, camera in hand, his teenage son beside him. The elephant read it instantly as a threat. Her ears spread wide, her head dropped, then she charged. Boxberger ran, possibly to draw her away from his son. It didn't matter. She was on him within seconds. The elephant hit him with her trunk or the full weight of her head, knocking him off his feet. Then she stepped on him, one foot on his chest, the other on his pelvis. The force was absolute. His ribcage collapsed, his spine fractured, his pelvis shattered, his internal organs were compressed beyond recognition. Doctors who later examined the body reported that it was no longer anatomically coherent. The internal structure of a human being dismantled in under 3 seconds. His son watched from a few yards away. Number 5. Timothy Treadwell, Katmai National Park, Alaska, October 5th, 2003. He spent 13 summers sleeping beside grizzly bears. On the 14th, one of them ate him. Timothy Treadwell called himself a protector of bears. He gave them names, filmed them from feet away, and told anyone who would listen that he had formed a genuine bond with the most dangerous land predators in North America. He had no firearms, no electric fence, no barriers of any kind between himself and the animals he believed were his friends. On the evening of October 5th, 2003, a large male grizzly, later identified as Bear 141, a 28-year-old, approximately 1,000-pound animal, attacked Treadwell outside his tent at the edge of Katmai National Park. His girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, was inside. Their video camera was running, but the lens cap was on. It captured only audio. That audio still exists. It begins with Treadwell screaming for Amy to come out. The bear is already on him. You can hear the sounds of his body being dragged across brush and dirt. Amy comes out of the tent. She screams at the bear. She tries to fight it off. Then her voice stops. When park rangers arrived the following morning, they found Treadwell's skull, part of his spine, and his right forearm, still wearing his watch, near the camp perimeter. The remainder of him had been consumed. Amy's body was found nearby, partially buried under a mound of dirt and branches, stored as a food cache. Bear 141 was shot and killed at the scene. A necropsy confirmed the presence of human remains in its stomach. Number 4. Taylor Mitchell, Cape Breton Highlands National Park, Nova Scotia, October 5, 2009. She was 19 years old, hiking alone between tour dates. The coyotes had been watching her for several minutes before she knew they were there. Taylor Mitchell was a rising Canadian folk singer, nominated for a 2009 Canadian Folk Music Award in the Young Performer category, with a debut album just out and a small but dedicated following. In October 2009, she stopped at Cape Breton Highlands National Park during a tour break and set out alone on the Skyline Trail. It was mid-afternoon. The trail was not empty. She just couldn't see what was sharing it with her. The coyotes in that area had stopped fearing humans. Studies conducted afterward found these specific animals had been hunting large prey, including young moose, using coordinated pack tactics. One animal approaches from the front to test for injury response, then the group attacks the legs to pull the target down before swarming. That is exactly what they did to Taylor Mitchell. The first coyote approached from ahead, appearing almost calm. It bit her. The moment she showed injury and distress, the rest came in fast. They went for her legs, trying to pull her to the ground. She fought. Other hikers heard her screaming and ran toward the sound. They found a coyote standing directly over her body, others still circling. They drove the animals off. Taylor was airlifted to hospital with deep puncture wounds across her body, skin torn down to the muscle on her legs and arms. She had lost too much blood. She died the following morning. It was the first, and to this day, the only confirmed fatal coyote attack on an adult human in North American recorded history. Number 3, Catherine Chappell, Lion Park, Johannesburg, South Africa, June 2015. She was told twice to keep the window closed. She rolled it down anyway. The lioness had already noticed. Catherine Chappell was an Emmy Award-winning visual effects editor whose work appeared in Game of Thrones. In June 2015, she traveled to South Africa on a conservation volunteering trip, her own time, her own money, to support wildlife protection efforts. She was not a reckless person. She understood animals mattered. On this particular afternoon, she was a passenger in a guided tour vehicle inside the Lion Park near Johannesburg, one of the facility's most heavily trafficked enclosures. The rules at Lion Park are non-negotiable and communicated before entry. Windows remain closed at all times. The guide stated afterward that he had warned Chappell at least twice. She wanted a cleaner photograph. She rolled her window down. A lioness the staff had previously flagged as a problem animal was already moving toward the vehicle, low to the ground, approaching from a blind spot on the passenger side. She had positioned herself deliberately. The moment the window came down, the lioness came through it in a single explosive movement, 400 pounds of muscle driving directly into the opening. Her jaws closed on Catherine's neck and shoulder. Her claws hooked into her upper body. The guide saw a flash of fur, then Catherine's torso disappearing as the lioness attempted to drag her out of the car. The bite severed her carotid artery. She was dead within seconds. She had come to South Africa specifically to protect lions. The rule she broke was the only one that mattered. Number 2, Steve Irwin, Bat Reef, Queensland, Australia, September 4th, 2006. He had pulled crocodiles out of floodwaters with his bare hands. He was killed in 4 feet of water by an animal most people have walked past without a second thought. Steve Irwin was the most recognized wildlife presenter on the planet, the crocodile hunter. Known in virtually every country, a man who had spent 3 decades placing himself between cameras and animals that could kill him. On September 4th, 2006, he was at Bat Reef in Queensland filming a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest. The weather had turned bad. The crew was shooting low-risk filler footage in shallow water while they waited for conditions to improve. Irwin was swimming slowly over a large stingray, estimated at 8 feet across, in no more than 4 feet of water. His cameraman, Justin Lyons, was filming directly in front of him. The ray, likely sensing the shadow closing over it from above, went into acute defensive mode. Its tail came up fast. What happened next took only a few seconds. The barb, serrated, rigid, laced with venom, did not strike once. According to Lyons, it was a frenzied, rapid series of stabs. One of those strikes went through Irwin's chest and directly into his heart. Lyons looked up and saw Irwin go rigid in the water, already surrounded by a spreading cloud of blood, then sink. They pulled him onto the boat. Lyons pressed on the wound. The barb had driven through Irwin's pericardial sac, the membrane around the heart, which immediately began filling with blood, compressing the heart from the outside. Even in a trauma surgical unit, survival from that injury is considered virtually impossible. Irwin looked up at Lyons and said, "I'm dying." Then he was gone. The entire incident was captured on film. At the request of the Irwin family, the footage was destroyed. Number 1, Diane Whipple, San Francisco, California, January 26th, 2001. She was walking to her own front door. Her arms were full of groceries. She never made it inside. Diane Whipple was a 33-year-old lacrosse coach at St. Mary's College of California, a former member of the U.S. Women's Lacrosse World Cup team, by every account a composed and capable person. On January 26, 2001, she stepped off the elevator on the 6th floor of her San Francisco apartment building and walked toward her unit. Her neighbor, Marjorie Noller, was at the other end of the hallway with 2 Presa Canario dogs named Bane and Hira. Bane weighed over 130 pounds. Both animals had been acquired and trained for a prison gang's dog fighting operation. Multiple people had reported them as dangerous. No action had been taken. Bane broke away from Noller and hit Diane before she reached her door. What followed lasted several minutes. Bane and Hira attacked her in a narrow residential hallway, simultaneously, continuously, in a space she had no way to escape. A neighbor who called 911 later told investigators the sound through the wall resembled wet canvas being torn apart. When police arrived, Diane was still alive. She had 77 documented wounds covering her entire body. The only skin untouched was the crown of her head and the soles of her feet. Her throat had been torn open. Her larynx was crushed. Her blood volume was more than half gone. Surgeons worked for hours. She died at the hospital that evening. Marjorie Noller, who claimed to have tried to shield Diane with her own body, had only minor scratches. She was convicted of second-degree murder, one of the only times in American legal history that a dog owner has been held criminally responsible at that level for a fatal attack. Bane and Hira were euthanized. The men who trained them for fighting were later prosecuted on unrelated federal charges.